Hello, my name is Rob Spence, and today I'm in conversation with a good friend, a dear friend of mine, Priti, as we explore and talk about her recent journey and her story. Priti, how are you?
Morning, Rob. Thank you. I'm very well. Good. Nice to be here in your company.
No, look, it's always a pleasure to speak with you and to talk to you. And I know this has been a long time coming, I think it's been a long time since we've been planning this conversation all out.
Yeah, I just feel now's about the right time to talk about my journey and the effect that it's had on me and other people.
Absolutely. Well, look, I feel honoured and privileged to have this opportunity to sit down with you. I've known you for many years and have got to know you over the many years. But just for those of you that are watching this that perhaps don't know who you are, just give me a brief introduction as to who you are.
Okay, so I'm a body worker. So I've worked with the body for over 30 years now. I work spiritually, holistically, and I do craniosacral therapy. I do a therapy called TRE, which are tremors that help you release stress and tension. I'm also a waxer, so I'm known all over the country really for my waxing skills, working with celebrities and fronting a wax that I had for 10 years. Yeah, I work spiritually because of my own journey from when I was a child and the things that impacted me in my life. I love doing what I do. I love helping other people, love healing and giving. So that is a normal day for me.
Absolutely. And what's just, I don't want to deviate too much from our story, but what's your sort of inspiration for doing all of that?
I think I've always felt that I didn't belong. I didn't belong in my family, didn't belong in my first marriage. And I feel like I've lived 4 lives. I feel like I'm on my 4th life. My first life was with my parents, and then I ran away from home. Second life was with my first husband, who was quite abusive, mental and physical. My third life has been with the amazing husband that I'm with now, nearly 32 years. And this is my 4th life, a complete change again. And it's, when you're searching for something for yourself, and it's not on the outside, it's on the inside. So I realised that I had to do the work on myself to be the person that I always was. So that just kind of led me on a journey really to help as many people as I could, to motivate them and show them that you've got this healing ability inside yourself, and teaching people how to have compassion for yourself, because that's what I did, and that's what's got me to where I am today.
Absolutely. And I've been on the receiving end of the TRE,
Yeah.
the CST.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the waxing, but the other two nonetheless. And I've gone on video to talk about the benefits of that those have had on my life. And I want to touch upon what you mentioned there about this 4th life. You've kind of had a bit of a whirlwind of a journey over the past 2 years, give or take.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
I think if you'd have asked me 3 months into the journey, I would have said to you, well, this is not a life that I would have picked. But sitting here now, you think there's actually a purpose for my 4th life. So 2023, I went for a standard mastectomy, got called it, not mastectomy, a mammogram. Mm-hmm. Just had a standard mammogram. They couldn't see what they wanted to see, I guess. I was pulled around quite a lot and didn't like the experience. Came home and it was 10 minutes from the Asda car park to get home. Mm-hmm. And by the time I got home, I had a bruise across my chest. Right. So my first reaction was, right, when I get my results, I'm going to write into Glenfield and say, what are you doing about training your staff? But it didn't get that far, because 8-9 days later I got another letter to say, we'd like you to come into Glenfield to have a high resonance image. And it was one of the strangest feelings you could ever have, because I opened the letter and I had this all-knowing feeling. And I just thought, shit, I've got it. Rang Kathy, my daughter, who just said, ring them, ask them what the letter's about. Anyway, it took me 40 minutes to get through to the breast clinic. By the time I got through, Kathy came home.
Right.
And I just said to her, what are you doing home? And she just said, I don't know, but I just had this feeling. And her and I are quite close. So that was the start of it. My appointment was the following Tuesday. This letter was on Thursday. My husband came in with me. Typical bloke, sat on his phone playing, solitaire. And this isn't about dissing the NHS or people. This is just my story and what happened to me. So we sat in the waiting room. Then I got told to get changed, and they put you back in your gown, feeling vulnerable, back in the waiting room where it's just full of other people that are dressed and stuff. Went in for the mammogram. Lady was lovely, and I just said to her, can I ask you, is it on my right side? And she said, yes, it is. And I just said to her, I'm not surprised, because the first lady that did it, she pulled me around. I'm not surprised she didn't get an image. And she just said to me, I think there is something there, but we just want to make sure what it is. And me, cool as a cucumber. I do the TRE for myself. I don't react until I need to keep my nervous system really downgraded all the time. Had the mammogram, and she said, don't know if you realise you're now going to have an ultrasound and see a doctor. She said, but just go and sit back in the waiting room. Went and sat back in the waiting room, and Dick was still on his phone. And I just said to him, I think they've seen something, but they're just making sure. And he was just like, oh, okay. And waited 40 minutes. Went in to see the doctor. And my scans were on the screen on the computer. And I just said to her, is that my breast? And she said, oh, yeah, yes, it is. I'm sorry. And I just said, no, that's fine. I said, and is it that mark? And she said, yes. But she couldn't feel it. And then ultrasounded it and asked me, I think there's 8 or 9 standard questions about, have you noticed anything about your breasts? Are they itching? Is your nipple inverted? Can you feel any lumps? And I just kept saying, no. I walked into the mammogram, felt well. I said, I've walked, I'm here today. I feel well. I don't feel ill. I can't make up a story for you, And she just said, yeah, I just can't feel it. Right. So ultrasounded it, did a biopsy, then had to wait another hour to see a nurse, to have another appointment. And I was going away for my birthday, and she gave me an appointment the next week, and I said, I'm not here. Do I need to cancel my holiday? And she said, no, we'll do it for the following Friday. Came back and then said, can't give you that appointment. The doctors are on strike. And it was round about the time all the doctors were in and, in hospital, on strike and doing whatever they were. And I always remember Dick was sitting on the edge of the chair when we saw this nurse. And I was sitting quite comfortably in the chair. And just like I'm talking to you now, I just looked at her face and I just said to her, are you telling me it's cancer? And she actually looked away and looked back at me and she said, very likely. And I think I had 2 tears each side, and Dick at that point, filled up. I had 2 tears. I wiped my eyes and I just said to her, what's my plan? And she just said, haven't got one for you. You'll have to wait to see what the doctors and the specialists decide is going on. And Dick was a bit like, what do we do now? And then it becomes a waiting game. So by the time we walked out the entrance from Glenfield to getting into the car, Dick had gone into complete denial. got in the car, rang Kathy, and, you know, I'm sure it's the one phone call that no, you know, child or loved one wants. And I put the phone down. And I think she had a big cry by the time I got back.
Yeah.
But it kind of then became, Kathy didn't cry a lot in front of me. I don't think she hardly did. I didn't cry a lot in front of her. I woke up the next morning and I just thought, you know, how are you going to do this, Priti? And then when the doctor was taking the biopsy for me, I thought that was the point where I thought, right, I can either let my adrenaline go and start reacting, or I can just go with the flow. So processed it overnight, woke up in the morning and thought, right, Priti, how are you going to do this? And I just thought, I know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to keep filling my body with love because, you know, here I am, 61. My body's looked after me. It's carried my soul. I'm not going to reject it now. I'm going to do everything that I can to help me. And then we waited 2 weeks for the results. They were inconclusive. Basically, the doctor, bless her, I know she was mortified. She'd messed the biopsy up.
Right.
So trying to get another biopsy meant another 2 to 3 weeks wait. So we decided to cancel our holiday. We were going back to America where we got married, cancel the holiday and use the money that we got back for private diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
So met my amazing surgeon and they did the biopsy there and then. I only literally had to wait 2 days to get in. And the surgeon who did my biopsy, he was amazing. He just said, what are you doing here? And I just said, I need you to do this biopsy just to confirm what I already know. And he just said to me, I can look at the screen, Priti, and tell you it's an area of concern. And I said, yeah, but you've got to do this. So he did the biopsy. It was just so full of kindness, couldn't look me in the eye. And the NHS, they'd missed a cyst at the side of it as well.
Right.
So he just said to me, I've got to tell you there's a cyst and I'm duty bound to drain it. If you don't want it done here, you can get off the bed and go back to Glenfield. And I just said to him, I can't get an appointment for love or money. Yeah. And he just said to me, well, I have to tell you that your bill today is going to be something like 2,200. And I just said to him, I've literally got no choice. You know, I need to move forward. So, yeah, so he drained it, went back out and said to Dick, and Dick and I had this conversation while we were sitting there, and I just said to him, when they actually confirm it today, I said, and you break down or you cry, I'm actually not going to pick you off the floor because this is about me and I need to go into the surgeon and get my plan. He was like, no, it's fine. It'll be all right. It'll be all right. And then when I came out and told him, he actually broke down. Mm-hmm. And there was a young lady sitting opposite us, and she started crying. And I got up and gave her a hug. And she said, I'm so sorry, I can hear your conversation. And I said, oh, it's all right. He's been in denial, but he'll be okay now. I said, this is the first step. And my friend Leslie actually works at the Nuffield, and she's the staff manager there. And she came out and she looked after Dick. And then we went in to see the surgeon. And that she confirmed it was cancer. And she just said, we'll get the results back of the type that it is. And then I'll see you, again for these appointments. And I was seeing her all over the place. So it was Nuffield at Leicester. Then I was going to Nottingham. And then a few times I saw her privately at Glenfield. And that's how it started, really. And the first thing, that I remember about, how how did I feel about having the cancer? I can honestly say I spent about 4 minutes dwelling on it. The first minute was literally, shit, why me? I'm a healer. You know, I heal everybody else. Well, I can't believe the universe has done this to me. And then I just said, do you know what? Maybe I've saved someone that's not as strong as me. You know, maybe spirit or whoever you believe in knows that I can handle it. So that's fine. I'll take it. Then I spent another minute thinking about, you know, don't know if we can swear, but all the fuckwits in this world that deserve it, because it just seems that only decent, good people seem to get it. So that lasted a minute. And then the next minute was, how am I going to deal with it? But I'm not going to be bitter. Because I didn't want all my energy to go into being bitter. I just wanted to heal. Yeah. So Kathy was able to tell a few of her friends at work that supported her, but we're quite a close family, so we were just like in this unit of 3. Dick had a really, really hard time. He wasn't really able to talk about it at work, and disassociated quite a lot. Really? On my journey.
In what way, if you don't mind me asking?
He wanted to come to all the appointments, and he did, but I found that it was hard to have him there because he was there, but he wasn't present. And, you know, we've done a lot of soul searching over this, and I think the disassociation is not admitting that, you know, that this has happened. Found it hard to deal with. And a lot of the times it'd make things about himself, and we'd be like, no, it's not about you, Dick, this is about me. And he'd be like, I don't think he could feel the pain and the trauma, but I'm really good at coping with that anyway, so I didn't kind of lay it on their shoulders. I just remember one night, and it was, so from diagnosis to surgery was literally 14, 15 weeks, which is a hell of a long time to wait to know what's happening. And I just remember one night, just went to bed, you know, and it's the quiet times. And I just remember lying in bed, and I turned to Dick and I just said to him, I don't want to die. And I just remember crying in bed, and he was like, you're not going to die. And I was like, you don't know. You don't know what's going on, you know. And then I thought to myself, right, you've had your 5 minutes of that cry. That's it now. Pull yourself together. And then we had the appointment with my surgeon, and she told me it was lobular, and didn't go on to explain what it was. That was a really bad appointment for me because we were in Nottingham. Appointment was 6 o'clock. Didn't get home till like 9:30, 10:45, and all these appointments are 4 or 5 hours long, right. So quite draining. So she didn't explain what lobular meant, and all through the journey, Kathy had said to me, "You're not Googling anything. Don't want you looking at scars and this and that." Because I came home and Googled it, didn't I? And
it's a natural thing, though, isn't it? When the inquisitive side wants to know what's going on, surely.
Yeah, I think there was a part of me that, you know, I was the one that was asking all the questions. I mean, Dick was there, but he didn't know what to ask. But, you know, because it's my journey and I've got to do for me, I wanted to know exactly what was happening with my body, what they were going to do to me, how was I going to recover? Was I going to recover, you know? And I think my surgeon at one point kind of didn't know how much information to give me. And we did have this conversation. I mean, she saved my life, and I'll always be grateful. You know what I mean? And she pushed and pushed, you know, to get the detection right. But there were times when I'd say to her, surely you can differentiate between the person that is strong and needs the answers to the person that is just rolling around on the floor going, don't tell me anything, I don't want to know, you know. And those conversations with her were, you know, we had quite a few. So anyway, at that point, she didn't tell me what lobular meant. So I came home, Googled it, shocked. And the first few things that I found out about was that it's a rare form. It's only 15% in the country that get diagnosed with it. And then I just thought to myself, Priti, why do you have to be so awkward? Why can't you just be run of the mill and do normal, you know? Then I started reading about how it's quite rare, although it's more common than things like skin cancer, bowel cancer, liver cancer, pancreatic cancer. So, and then realised how it works, and the reason that nobody could see it or feel it is that it doesn't grow in a lump.
Right.
It grows like a spider's web, or like a postage stamp, or like the tendrils of a jellyfish.
Okay.
And does amazing things, you know. If it gets through your lymph nodes, the first things that it does, it attacks your liver, bone and brains. And at that point, I just thought, shit, I need to stop reading this. And that was a bad night. And Kathy came in and saw me Googling, and she just said, get off it. There were hard times, you know, the quiet times. I think, you know, everybody's gone to work. But I'd made up my mind. So kind of like going back a few paces, I'd made up my mind that I wasn't going to tell any of my clients. I told 4 people, of which you were one. And the 4 people that I told were all men.
Was that, if I can ask, you know, I want to make, you know, I was really honoured's probably the wrong word to use, but you still feel quite privileged that I felt privileged that you felt comfortable and sort of loved our relationship so much you're willing to share that with me. Was there a conscious decision to only tell male friends and male contacts, or was it just a subliminal thing?
Do you know what, Rob? I haven't got a family as such. You know, we're a tight unit. You know, my parents are both dead, but the relationships weren't good. I have no said relationship with my siblings, you know, and I never have had since I was a child. So I've always felt on my own. So not having a natural family hasn't really bothered me, because I have a soul family, of which you're one of them. And, you know, so I just knew that the people that I would tell, first of all, we wouldn't have a pity party. And that's not what I wanted, you know. What I wanted was the various strengths that these 4 people could give me, you know. And, you know, your relationship, my relationship, it's always love, laughter, but there's a depth to it, you know. Another guy that I told, Johnny, he's like a soul coach, but he's a business coach. You know, I've worked with him for so many years through his healing journey. And bless him, he used to drive down from Swindon at least once a week to come and see me to make sure that I was grounded and okay. My friend Mark, who is like a soulmate from another life, he's in Dubai. And yeah, I just needed to tell the people that I knew would have my back. It was quite sad at times when Dick couldn't say what I wanted him to say. Yet these 4 people were like, yeah, it's all right, we've got your back. And it was a gut instinct for me not to tell women. Right. I don't know what it was, but I remember telling the first woman that I told, and she let me down big time.
Oh, okay.
And I just thought, Jesus, that just proves that you don't need to. Now, I think telling a woman that you've got breast cancer, I think it puts fear into them as well. So it makes them think about their vulnerabilities. And I work with vulnerability, and I think maybe that's one of the reasons why I didn't want to share it with anybody. So, so it went from a cheeky lumpectomy, as our Kathy calls it, because she was just like, "You're going to be fine, Mum. You're going to, you're going to smash this. It'll be a lumpectomy. You'll go in, you'll come out, you'll be back at work, you'll be doing this, doing that." And then they just kept finding different things going on. And then they realised it was in 3 sites.
Right.
And so I got a phone call from my surgeon. We were actually away. And bless her, didn't really know what to say. She did know what to say, but because I'm the person I am, and I just remember her saying, "I'm just ringing you with a heavy heart to say it's not a lumpectomy anymore, it's a mastectomy." And I just said to her, "It's okay, I know." And I'd had this feeling that it would be. I can't explain it. And then she called me and she said, "When you're back," she said, "come in. We'll have a meeting with another surgeon, myself and a nurse, and we'll discuss all the options." And that was the only appointment that Kathy went with me. Mm. And the male perspective, Dick was like, "Just get your breast off. You're not having an implant. You're not having any more surgery." And Kathy then kind of said to him, "It's not your body. Mm. You're not the one that wears nice clothes and goes out and, has a cleavage on show." And she just said, "Mum's still young, because I might be 61, but in my head, I'm still 21. Do you know what I mean?"
Yeah, it's no age.
No.
Yeah.
And so she just said to him, "You can't dictate to Mum." And I guess in these stories, the man does have an opinion, but it's probably different, And I think he said all these things because he really didn't want to lose me, and that's the one thing that he won't confront is that, it could be a loss. And so Kathy came with me and, Monica, my surgeon, we talked all about it. We'd already decided what we were going to do. We were going to have a reconstruction straight away, so have an implant. And it wasn't decided at that point whether I would have chemo or radiotherapy. But if I was going to have that, I couldn't have the implant straight away. So then booked the surgery in. Surgeon, brilliant. She said, I'm not doing your surgery privately because it's going to be about another £13,500. We've got everything we need here at Glenfield. You'll get great care. When I'm not on the ward, the nurses will look after you. So the surgery was booked, and I worked right up till the day of my surgery.
So you mentioned you're working right up until the surgery, and I know you're a very, very strong woman, mm-hmm. and so on. But what were those kind of emotions whilst you were working, still trying to process everything that was going on, trying to process the uncertainty? How were you feeling?
The first thing is, I didn't want to die. I did not want to die. And if somebody hands you this thing, you've got a choice. You can either do your research, find out about it and fight it, or you can literally give up. And I was just like, no, I'm not giving up, because the way I looked at it, I've got too much love left to give. I've got too much love left to receive. And I've got a shitload of healing to do for other people. And that's what fills my soul. And you know what? Time is precious. And I just thought, I can't waste it feeling negative about what's happening. There was times of sadness. I just thought, my mum's not here. She died in COVID. I don't know what support she would have been for me anyway, because, we couldn't have this big relationship because of all the family, the cultural things. It's really weird. I felt alone and kind of unsupported. However, I was supported. I'd got people around the world praying for me. I'd just sent messages to a few people that I knew that had been in my life but had moved away. And I just knew I couldn't say it out loud because I daren't say it out loud that I was going to be okay. But I kind of just knew, Priti, you just got to keep your head down, just keep doing. And it wasn't hard for me not to tell my clients, like even on the last day, you know, it was fine. I felt more sorry really for Kathy. I felt sorry for Kathy because I think the people at work and her friends knew. But then all of a sudden, Rob, it goes from you've told you got cancer and you feeling like, shit, I need to start planning my funeral because everybody thinks that, to all of a sudden going to, right, you've got this thing inside you, let's get it out and let's live. You know, let's get on with the next part of the journey. I remember Kathy saying to me after the surgery, I want to see you cry. And I was like, no, you're all right, you know. But there were tears. I think one of the strongest moments for me was the day I went in for surgery. Kathy decided to drive. She cried all the way to the hospital. I was on my phone, just some people, you know, that knew, messaging me. And I just said to her, can you stop crying? I need to get to the hospital in one piece, you know. I'd had the best night's sleep. I'd had a lovely meal the night before. Dick just wouldn't talk about it. I think Kathy, you know, she was in bits. We got to the hospital and I'd forgotten what ward I was on. So we walked around the hospital. We were about 20 minutes late. I got up to the ward and they were waiting for me, and I was Monica, my surgeon's number one on the list. And I just remember she came running in with the scrubs. She said, where have you been? And I said, oh, I was just showing Dick and Kathy around the hospital. And that's how it was. It was humour, you know. And Kathy's still standing there crying. The sister that checked us in then just said, you know, these are the visiting times, off you go. And Kathy just went, I'm not going anywhere. And so I just remember Monica saying to her, you just stay there, you know. And these are the things that people don't talk about, you know, how you're there in that vulnerable moment, but then there's certain rules that you've got to obey, and there's no kind of leeway, you know. So Monica just said, no, just stay there. And she just said to me, I've got to draw on you. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. You know, everybody had seen my breast, the whole world. And she asked if Dick and Kathy wanted to go out of the room, and Kathy just said, no, absolutely not. And I stood there. Monica drew on my chest. And then she said, I need you to lie on the bed. She said, I need to draw on you while you're lying down. I got on the bed, and Kathy said to me afterwards, she said, you were lying on the bed. She said, and I saw your face change. She said, and I blinked, and then you were back in the room. She said, what were you thinking in that, like, 2-3 seconds? And I just said to her, all I thought was, the next time I wake up on this bed and open my eyes, I'm going to be different, but I'm going to be alive. And Kathy just said, I just thought, she's going to let go now. She's going to cry now. And I just said to her, no, Kathy, because she saved my life. And, you know, being in a state of panic wasn't going to do anybody any good, you know. Yes, so the emotions were real, but I kind of knew how to deal with them, I suppose. I still had craniosacral treatments from the guy that looks after me. Did my own TRE, obviously, because I'm a provider, so I made sure I was doing that. Made sure I went out for lots of long walks, you know, went out with the dog. Yeah, and just literally prayed every day and just said, you know, I want to live, please, you know, just help me. And just had good positive thoughts all the time.
Which I think is a very brave thing to do. I think we were talking off camera, the recent statistics of 1 in 2 people will be affected by cancer in some regard, I believe.
Yeah.
And I think it takes a lot of bravery to, A, hear that that word, the cancer word,
Mm-hmm.
and still be willing to fight, to love and
Yeah.
to be loved and to show willing to fight. Many
Yeah.
people will go into
Yeah.
flight or fight
Right,
mode.
yeah.
But I think as well, you know, I want to explore lobular cancer for a second, because I'm going to have to look at my notes. I think it's 15%
Yeah.
of people diagnosed with breast cancer actually end up with lobular cancer, I believe.
Yeah.
However, there is a lack of funding, research and awareness
Mm-hmm.
of that. Why do you think that is? And did that affect you any deeper than if it was anything different?
Jesus, did it affect me? Yes, it did. First of all, I got a little bit not annoyed, and this is how I work. I was just like, I need this information for me. Where can I find it? Where can I get it from? And the more I dug, the more I realised there's a couple of groups on Facebook, you know, that I linked myself up to, and the Lobular Cancer Society in UK. And found a lot of information from them, found the stats from them, not from my surgeon, not from my oncologist, not from the breast cancer team. And it's scary. It's absolutely so scary to think that there's all this research going on, but they don't do hardly anything for the lobular. It seems that in America they're finding all these treatments, all these ways of trying to see it, you know. Some mammograms don't pick it up, even some MRIs don't pick it up, but here we're trying to advocate that you should be given an MRI. Some surgeons will offer it to you, but not every health authority does. It's quite shocking, because you know what, if it's gone through your lymph nodes, there's no specific treatment for this cancer. I'm on a blanket treatment. There's no specific drug, you know, so you just have to take your chances with what you're given. And that's the scary thing. So I had a year on one drug, but ended up as a complete cripple. I literally could not walk up the stairs. And at the same time, I'm trying to work, found it really hard, difficult to work, self-employed, so you don't get any benefits. So you've got to work, you know. Yeah, so then kind of, I didn't struggle, but I had to like try and get support from the doctors who are GPs, general practice, and they just keep saying, refer you back to the breast clinic. And unfortunately, if you don't dig your heels in, you're a name and a number, aren't you? You're a stat. And so managed to get an appointment with an oncologist, because I then realised that how bad the drugs were affecting me, and that I needed some alternative. So I researched the drugs, and I've got, you know, a couple of brilliant clients, you know, that are doctors that gave me information, and sat on their portals with them and stuff. And it was decided that I would go on the third drug down, which is a lower efficiency drug, which, you know, when you've got a drug that's working but making you a cripple, then to have a bit of a life, you've got to drop your drug, but the efficiency is less. You know, what do you do? What do you do? Because you want a life, don't you?
Yeah.
So it was decided that I'd go on that drug, and then I did a load of research for it, and it's a standard drug, tamoxifen, but there's not enough information out there about diet and how certain things affect the efficiency of it. So I just dug in and just find that out, and just share it with as many people as can, even the oncologist, you know, and my doctor, who is absolutely brilliant. I take printouts into him and go, it's this and it's that. But yeah, lobular, scary.
Yeah,
Very scary. And the funding that's raised for breast cancer research and stuff, lobular only get 1%. I mean, how? Why?
Yeah.
Because it's a little known cancer, and yet it has the same effect, if not worse, you know, on people that have ductal. I mean, they're doing studies now in America that you don't you don't always have to have a lumpectomy and a mastectomy. They can treat it while it's in your body.
Okay.
So the advances are absolutely amazing, and you just have to hold your breath and fingers crossed that it all comes over here.
Yeah, and I'm sure it will one day.
Yeah.
I want to go back slightly to that moment. You're in hospital and you are sort of just prepping for surgery, and I think you said you had that moment where you thought, look, when I wake up, my body's going to be different. And I think the words you said were, my body's going to be different, but I'm going to be alive.
Yeah.
You know, obviously it's very much a life-changing and body-changing thing. And how did things then progress when you stepped out of surgery, once you'd been under the knife and sort of stepped out of that surgery room?
Do you know what? I think I'm not one of these that's led by people's opinions. And I was kind of, you know what, my senses were open. And the thing that I picked up from other people was that, you've had your surgery, you've got an implant. Oh my God, aren't you lucky? You've had an implant. You've got a breast that's like sitting up there now. And you know what? It wasn't like that. It wasn't a cosmetic procedure. You know, I've got no breast tissue covering my implant, just skin. So all kinds of complications with that. I was handed over to the breast care team. That all kind of went wrong because I was up on the ward twice a week saying, this isn't right, this isn't right. And I just had to keep advocating for myself. So I had a drain in my side, which was meant to be in for 14 days, which my body decided to push out at day 3. So I had to go in, get that removed, not a problem. But twice a week I went up saying there's something wrong. And my breast actually looked like a Katie Price breast. It was, it was like I was a porn star, but flat on this side with my natural breast. So it was just like I didn't have time to go, oh my God, I'm grieving for the breast that I've lost, because it was trying to deal with what I'd been left with. And I'm really blessed, really, really blessed in the fact that when I took my clothes off, I've never had Dick or Kathy go like that. You know, the first time, Kathy helped me with my dressings and stuff. She just said, I didn't know what to expect, but you've got the shape of a breast, which is amazing. Dick, bless him, he didn't see a lot of the scarring, but, he saw it as it started to heal. And he never made me once feel like I wasn't a woman. And I think that helped me cope so much. I did go through the grieving process. And I think one of the funniest things I said to Kathy was, before the surgery, you better say goodbye to it. And she said, why? I said, well, because it's going. I said, and, this is the breast that breastfed you. And she was like, oh, for God's sake, mother, shut up. Do you know what I mean? And I think when you say things like that, you don't realise what you're saying. But I think that is your nervous system getting you ready for it. Really lucky. My surgeon is so talented. I've ended up with the implant that looks absolutely amazing. Had a lot of problems with my scarring though. Do I feel any less of a woman? No, I don't. I guess mainly because I've got the other one, and my surgeon offered me reconstructive surgery on that side just to balance everything up, which has been amazing. So, yeah, you can't tell that I've got an implant.
No.
So it doesn't bother me. And my surgeon, when I see her, she always asks me, are you going to have a tattoo on your scars, or would you like me to create a nipple for you on this one? And I always keep saying, no, it's a bit of a joke. She asks me every time. But I don't feel the need because I feel, inadequate.
And you shouldn't feel less of a woman, I don't think.
No.
I think it's you know, it's a beautiful transition that you've kind of stepped into.
Mm.
And one of the things I want to it kind of transitions nicely into what we want to explore is part of the scarring. And I know you've been on a journey with some of the scarring, and sort of kind of takes you into your next sort of your next healing role to some degree. So
well, that's my fourth life, isn't it?
There we are.
You know, so yeah, so the drain dislodged itself, left a bit of scar tissue underneath. I think sometimes people don't realise how big the mastectomy scars are. So, you know, mine goes right round the side to under my arm. I didn't have a separate scar for the lymph node biopsies and things. So, but the scar was internal for that. I've got what they call a Wiseman incision, which is like an anchor. And so parts of the scar started to heal. Parts of it didn't, especially where the drain had caused a lot of scar tissue underneath on my side. And this goes back to getting the right help and stuff. You know, there was like conflicting, you know, put something on your scars, don't put something on your scars. You know, what are you telling me? Leave it. You know, the first one was just put E45 on it, you know, which is generic. It's like putting Vaseline on it, but what's it doing? You know what I mean? So, yeah, kind of, I would say the first 3 months struggled. However, at the 6-week mark, I rang some therapists that work in Narborough, HLP therapy, and I asked if they could do lymph drainage for me. And at that time, they weren't offering lymph drainage, and especially at 6 weeks. And then, funnily enough, a client and a friend of mine who was head of Macmillan, she had come in to check my scars, you know, just as a friend. And she just said to me, you need to go and see Hannah at HLP therapy. And I said, oh, well, I've rang them, but they're not doing lymph drainage. And she said, no, they'll help you with your scars. And that started a journey for me where I felt heard, I felt seen. There was none of this, oh my God, look at your scar, you know, no sharp intakes of breath. And Hannah, bless her, she took photos for me, showed me how to massage the scars myself. We talked about the products that I could put on them. And so I had an appointment with her once a month and did some basic work at home. And my scars are amazing because I guess it is down to the skill of the surgeon and the speed at what they do. Parts of my scars have completely vanished. Wow. It's 21 months on the right side, but only 13 months on the left side. And the left side has already started, you know, to fade into my skin. And it was hard. The scars, coping with the scars, not because I'm a vain person. It was just what the scars were doing to my body. So causing a lot of restriction. They give you exercises once you've come out of hospital. I'd done all my exercises and my own that I'd thrown in. But it started to feel quite a lot of pain around my shoulder girdle. Couldn't decide if I'd got frozen shoulder. But, you know, if you're on low estrogen, that can give you frozen shoulder as well. So there was all these complications going, you know, not sleeping at night, not getting comfortable, having to sleep with pillows underneath, you know, your implant and stuff.
And that's now taking you on a journey. You've mentioned Hannah and sort of the absolute sort of benefit she's had to your life and well-being and everything moving forward. And now you're looking to support others who have been through your situation.
Yeah, really, because, you know, your surgery, people think you've had your surgery, that's it, breast cancer story, over. And it's not. The surgery is just the start of your journey, you know, and that involves how you, people will say to you, oh, you can get back to your normal life. But, you know, after breast cancer, there's no such thing as a normal life. You know, even as strong as I am and the positivity that I teach other people, even I have a moment in the day where I go, am I cancer free? You know, am I going to be okay? So it's just the start of your journey, and there just isn't enough help. So you come out of the hospital, they give you your phone numbers, they give you the people that you can ring, your breast care nurse, all the groups that you can go to. But sometimes it's hard accessing, you know, all of these groups and trying to talk to people or put into words what you want to say or what you need, you know, or just to sit one-to-one with someone and just be able to open up and not be judged or stared at or looked at, or just have somebody say to you, there, it's done now, come on, off you go, get on with it. And so I think because I was resourceful myself and I'd got the tools anyway, I just decided it was really, you know, good for me to show, you know, and not just women, because men get breast cancer as well, you know. It was good for me to show that, you know, there is another way.
And I think even just telling this story today is a good way. It's a very inspiring story and such a lovely way for, you know, for you to support others, I guess.
Do you know what? My fourth life, you know, is about continuing to heal other people and teach them that they can have a life that's fulfilled and lived well. And part of the breast cancer journey for me has been to know that I can make a difference, because Hannah made a difference to my scars and my well-being. And we just had this conversation one day, and she just said to me, why don't you treat the breast scars? And I was like, no, I'm too close to you, because she's only in the next village. And it was like looking a gift horse in the mouth, really. Every time Hannah said something, I'd have an excuse. She just said to me, just do it. So I've spent time with her. I've trained with her. She's one of the leading authorities on scars in the UK. She travels all over the world learning, you know, about the scars and, you know, the physical and emotional aspects of it. And we just made quite a good team. Do you know what I mean? And she works like I do, spiritually, holistically. And so did the course, passed the course, and then it was just like, right, so this is what you're going to do now. You know, and I was kind of like buzzing, nervous. It's been 30 years this year since I first did my intimate waxing, and I've got the same buzz about this as I had then.
So we've been talking about this fourth life and how you're now going to be moving on to support other people. One question that kind of really sprung to my mind earlier, you touched upon how other people may feel it's hard to offer support to someone going through what you went through, or, you know, may feel uncomfortable. They may not know how to react. You know, I still remember the phone call that we had when you told me, and I very much remember the conversation. I said, look, you're stronger than this. This is not going to be, this is not going to sort of determine you. This is just going to be a little speed bump in your life, and sort of give you I'll use the word tough love to some degree. Yeah. But obviously I know that, you know, some people may struggle with that, or some people in your life have sort of struggled with that. What's the best advice, you know, for someone to give support to someone going through what you went through?
I think the first thing that everybody needs to know, being positive all the time is hard work. And you know what? We do get fed up of being told to be positive all the time. Do you know what I mean? I work in a different zone. So for me, it's okay. But I found that being positive all the time can have a negative impact. It's hard work, you know, it drains you. So I guess the conversations from other people need not be about positivity and you'll smash it and you've got this and, you know, you can do it, you're strong. I think you hear that so many times and then you just think, are you actually talking to me or are they just words that you've just picked out of a book? I think the best thing that you can do for somebody that's going through anything is just be present. You know, we're not looking for you to cure us, you know, and I say we because I feel, you know, it's a collective. Don't want you to do anything for me. I just, you know, if I'm having a shit day, I just want you to listen. If I'm in pain, I just want you to listen or hand me a paracetamol. You don't actually have to have big words. You know, maybe put your arm around me. You know, anything, you know, touch is transformative. So that helps. But I think people shy away from making a conversation with you because they're not in it. They don't know, they can't identify with the emotion. And that's okay. That's absolutely fine. I think the people that are offering you the support have to kind of dig deep and find that strength within themselves to be able to say, I don't know what to do for you, but whatever you need, you just reach out. You know, and not feel guilty about it. It's a bit like when somebody dies, you know, you're grieving and you see someone walking down the street that you're quite close to, yet they'll stay on the other side of the street and not speak. That's how breast cancer gets. It's just like people just don't want to mention it. But it's there, it's out there. Something that's happened to you, you can't get away from it, and it's how you deal with it.
Which makes a lot of sense. And I want to kind of touch upon, if you were to take yourself now, sort of as you are now, if you could sort of be present in that first meeting with the doctor that you had, just when you're just going into the diagnosis,
I know
into
what
that
you're going to
journey.
ask me and I wouldn't change it. I absolutely wouldn't change my reactions or my thoughts.
Is there anything you would have said to yourself if you were present in that room to your younger self? What would you have said to that younger you?
I think one of my thoughts was, shit, here we go again. Because I've had adversity in my life before. And I just remember looking at Dick and thinking, I'm not ready to die, you know, and this is not the end for me. And I would go back and I would have all the same conversations with my surgeon, all the heart-to-hearts. There's nothing I would change, Rob. But I'm different, aren't I? Because I work with trauma. You know, I kind of knew what to expect, but I also knew that I needed to stay really, really calm and focused and hear what people were saying to me. A lot of appointments that you go to when you're the patient, you actually don't hear quite, you know, you probably hear the first two sentences and then after that it's all a blur. And so, you know, that's why they say bring somebody with you. But no, there's nothing I would say to my younger self. Sometimes I just think I've handled it really well. I am, you know, and I never talk about being proud of myself or whatever. For me, it's my journey. This is what I need to do to survive. This is what, you know, helping other people fills my soul. Nothing. There's nothing that I would change. I would have liked more support for Dick, but, you know, he didn't know how to reach out, and I think, you know, he's a man, so he didn't feel inclined to talk to other men, which was a bit sad. But I guess that's the only thing, you know, that I would change. And maybe, you know, in hindsight, maybe not get breast cancer. You know,
there is that. There is that.
It's not what I planned.
No, absolutely. So what's in the next journey then? What's in the next chapter? What's coming up soon for you?
So what's coming up soon for me? I've got the 2-year anniversary of my first surgery coming up in June. By then, I hope to have launched the website and helped quite a few people. And if anybody has any problems with their scars and stuff, I can treat 6 weeks upwards. I can work with your doctors, your oncologists, your surgeons. And I'm there for advice as well. So we're going to be doing a few blogs on the website. So if people are reaching out for anything, they don't know what they're looking for, they don't know, we can point them in the right directions. And surviving, I guess, is high, on the list. Surviving, being happy, doing the diet, the nutrition, getting the best out of every day, really. That's what the future is for me. I'm on my drugs for the next 3 years or so. Don't really know what's going to happen after then, but I'm hoping that there'll be a drug that is specific for me. But we'll just have to wait and see.
And for those that do want to contact you that will need some help and support, how can they get in touch with you?
So email, website, phone numbers. So we'll put the numbers out, I think, won't we?
We will, yeah. Make sure in the show notes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then just final question from me, just to round up, because I know there's going to be some people watching and listening to this that are going through what you've been through. They could be at the start of that journey, they could be in the middle, they could be at the end, and everything else in between. What's the last parting message you wish you could say to them right now?
Jesus. Sorry it's happened to you. Sorry it happened to me. But you're there. You're in that journey. Make sure you ask questions. Write stuff down before you get to your appointments. Share your fears with the people, that you're closest to. Don't feel like you've got to tell the whole world, because sometimes you'll be disappointed by other people's reactions. Listen, ask for what you feel you need. If you feel that that's not the journey that you want to go down, research it, ask more questions, ask for, different drugs, different surgeries. It's just a matter of knowing and advocating for yourself. Don't feel that you can't ask a question because you think it's silly, because there's no question that is silly. And you're not alone, and if you can't talk to your loved ones because they're struggling with it, there are places that you can talk to, and you'll find them on websites and all kinds of sites. I know, you'll find them at the breast clinic as well. There's all the organisations that you can talk to. But, it's the fear, isn't it?
I can only imagine.
Yeah,
I can only imagine.
It's just the fear. And why would you not feel the fear? But it's the start of your journey, and speak to someone that can teach you how not to fear the fear, and that you're not alone. And there's always someone out there that will be able to hold you up and give you support and love.
Priti, it's been a pleasure to hear your journey and hear your story. And I will make sure I put all of your contact details in the video below, so I'm sure anyone watching or listening to this that feels affected in any way, shape or form, they can get in touch with you or be signposted to help and support. Yeah,
just reach out, and thank you for your time and your honesty and your love. It's been a real pleasure for me. There's nobody else that I wanted to sit down and talk with, so I've had a lovely morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Priti.
Thank you.